So on this 5 minute of knowledge, we're going to talk about why you should know about chip formation and machining. Being a mechanical engineering major, machining is something I have to work with every day if I have to manufacture or produce or design anything. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what is chip formation. Well, chip formation is basically a part of the process of cutting materials by mechanical machining. When I say that, you probably have a question: what is mechanical machining? Well, simply defining what is machining, it is the process of cutting materials with the tools such as saws, lathes, milling cutters. It's called machining. So we have these mechanically operated or handmade saws or lathes or any type of thing that would cut a metal piece or a wood piece. It's called machining. So why is chip formation important? Well, when you look at this in terms of mechanical engineering student, so this picture right here is about drill machining. So what happens is the machine is drilling on the metal piece right there and forming a shape that we desire. And you can see some of the little pieces flying on the sides. These are called chips. So this one this one is machining by cutting the piece with a blade right over here. This is called precision machining. So the reason chip formation is important for any mechanical engineering student is that understanding the theory and engineering of chip formation will give you important information about how the machine is working, how the blades are, whether it is sharp or is it dull, or what type of angle we're cutting it at, or if the material we're cutting is brittle or is ductile. There are a lot of information that's hidden behind the chip formation. So how are these chips formed? Like I just discussed before, chips are basically formed when any kind of cutting tool will penetrate a material and try to deform the material piece. Chips are formed, which are the unnecessary materials that are on the surface of the material, which has been extracted by the cutting machine itself. So the main reason for chip formation is due to the deformation of shear stress. This shear stress is applied to metal lying ahead of the cutting edge of the tool. The cutting tool has to overcome the resistance of the work material to give it a desired shape. So a cutting tool must be more harder with resistance than the material being cut. So we talked about chip formation and what is machining. So how many types of chips are formed, or what are the types of chips in machining? So the four main types of chips in machining process are discontinuous chips, continuous or ribbon type chips, RTC, or continuous chip built up edge. These are called BUE. And the fourth one is serrated chips. So talking about discontinuous chips, main reason of discontinuous chip formation is the deformation due to repeated fracturing. These are small pieces which are loosely connected to each other. So if you see the picture over here, you can see the small pieces running out of the material over here, and it's passing through the cutting material right here. So this happens when this material right here is too hard or too brittle and is more rigid than the blade itself. Talking about continuous type of chips, in this type of chip formation, the chips are bonded together and form long coils, as you can see in the picture over here. So this whole chip is attached to this workpiece right here. Now this happens on exactly opposite of the discontinuous chips when this material is going through plastic deformation, or if the metal piece is too ductile. And then after the continuous or ribbon, we have a built-up edge, which is almost similar to the continuous. When the cutting blades strike the workpiece or the material we're cutting, which has a porous surface, then we get to see the built-up edge. Like in this picture over here, You can see this one is pretty similar to the continuous chip, but these chips over here that is connected to the workpiece itself is kind of breaking into parts. If you see under this part right here. So these chips are actually in this BUE, or built-up edge chips, are actually helpful because the chips which are over here protect this material from getting more wear and tear on the inside with the blade that we're cutting the machine with. And the last kind of chip is serrated chips. So when materials are cut at very high speeds, these chips are likely to be formed, like we saw on that drilling picture while we were doing this one. So why studying the types of chips produced is important in understanding cutting operations. So this is the main question. Like we talked about, what is chip formation, what is machining. It all leads to this one question right here. Why is it important? It is important because understanding cutting process, you have to know what kind of cutting force you're applying to it, or what kind of surface finish does the material have, in order to know which kind of machining to use or which kind of tool to use, and to know how much longer the blades on the machines are gonna last. And similarly, continuous chips, like if we have continuous chips, these information from the chips we gain, like the surface has a smooth finish, or the tool had good life while machining this process. When we have discontinuous chips, we know that there's a rough finish and there's fluctuating force in the cutting operation. So similarly, these kind of reasons that we talked with, how the chips are formed, will help us know what the materials are like, and it will help us in improving the machining process and estimating the life of the blades that we're using in machining.